Hey guys, welcome back. I love mini splits, but I don't always like the looks of those lines going down the exterior walls of my cabins. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to run those line sets up through the attic space, but dress them up on the interior of the home to make them look sharp. Stay tuned and let's get after it. So although there's a few different ways you could do this video is just going to highlight one that I like to do on our cabins. Again, you could always run these line sets down the exterior of the home and encase them in a piece of basically plastic looking tubing that the company will provide that has some elbows to turn 90-degree angles, but I'm just not crazy about that look. And it's hard to put them on an interior wall and to make that bend that sharply to go down within an interior wall, not to mention those walls would then need to be framed with 2x6 instead of 2x4. So what I'm going to do is show you just one of a couple of options to where you could box this in, hide these line sets, but again keep the exterior of the home looking sharp. So again, this is one of only a couple of different options, but for the next few minutes I want to show you what I'm doing here to not only make it look good, but to hide it and also make it accessible if any maintenance in the future might be needed. First thing I'm doing is just taking some rough measurements from the top of the unit up to the ceiling. Basically the width of the box that I'm going to need as well as the length. And I'm not even really worrying about the roof pitch, although I know on the interior it's a 312. And you'll see here in just a couple of minutes what that looks like as I assemble it and then wrap it in what the interior finish is, and that's a shiplap material. I'm working with basically a 1x4 here. And on this case here, although I'm being pretty precise, you don't have to be, particularly if you're going to wrap it in sheetrock or a finished paneling, or in my case, shiplap material. So I just took those rough measurements, and again, I'm looking to be pretty close, but if there's any wiggle room that I need to make or any fine tuning, I'll do it on the finished material. Weird camera angle here. I apologize for the shakiness. I set the tripod up on the table, and every time I moved or shot the nail gun or moved my coffee cup, I inevitably made the camera shake. So I'm learning. I'll get better about that. But as you can see under my left hand there, that little notch is basically for the line sets to come out of the unit and then run up through this chase. Kind of rough and crude. I'm actually using staples here because, again, with this not being finished material, staples are going to hold it incredibly well. A lot better than a brad nail or maybe even a finish nail. So I'm just putting it up here to get a good idea of the fit. I don't need it to go all the way to the ceiling. That's going to be trimmed out with some trim, 1.5-inch trim. And right now I'm just making some marks there to what plumb is. And I'll attach some cleats here, as you can see, on both the left and the right. And that box will basically just go on the outside of both of those cleats, allowing me to either screw to or nail to those to be accessed later. So again, just looking at my marks there, putting them up, and I'm shooting them with, I believe, I'm working with an 1.5-inch 16 gauge finish nail. So fitting it here. These cords here aren't attached because although this is a Mr. Cool mini split system, the lines come pre-charged. The electrical is not attached the way that you would see on a finished model. So we'll do that later. So that's what you saw me fighting with the cord there. I lost some footage here of me wrapping this box in the finished material. This is still a pretty crude stage. As you can see, the top is not to fit because that's going to be wrapped in some finished material. Neither are my corners clean. Just really looking for a good basic tight fit. And here, one thing I've learned is I sprayed the interior of this cabin shiplap with an airless sprayer. That's the only way to do it. Painting this stuff with a brush is just unthinkable. The biggest reason is the shiplap gaps is basically a nickel gap. It's probably around 1/8 of an inch, and it's real easy to get those full of paint to where they just sort of bridge. And you'll see here in a moment where after I get this unit painted, I actually go back and clean out those gaps with a little piece of scrap shaving that I found, I think, just laying on the floor. So again, don't want to get the airless sprayer out and go through all the process of cleaning it just to spray this little box, so decided to brush it on. But that was probably the most labor-intensive side of this, was to paint it and then let it dry. So I'm just fast-forwarding this here. You can see how the trim is. The trim doesn't need to be exact. I'm probably going to come back in some of those joints that didn't paint well. I might put some caulk on, but wanted to see what this was going to look like if the paint was actually going to cover up the nail holes in the trim, or if I would need to come back and fill those with a filler. Now I'm just going to get it back installed, double check everything. As you can see, those cleats that I'm going to call them, those nailers that are running vertical, as this thing sort of fits snug on both sides of those. You could come back and hit those with a brad gun, or in my case, I think I'm going to just put those with some very small screws, and then again run a piece of trim just in that little corner there on both sides to finish and clean that up. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that it's given you some ideas as to some alternatives to keeping these line sets looking attractive and not taking away from the look of your home. I appreciate you coming by. I enjoy building with you. If you like what you're seeing, I could use a thumbs up, and I would appreciate you subscribing and hitting that little bell so you could be alerted when I put out new videos. Until next time, get after it.